Hi, hey, we have 100 people joining us. That's really great. Um, Welcome, everyone. Hope everybody can hear me. Let me check the chat. Hi, you welcome to, uh, there's a chat button on the side you can click on. You can type me a message. Um, Thanks for joining us tonight. I um, I want to start off by talking about something that's not exactly related to the topic, but leads into it, and that is this class I took on learning and teaching. My last semester in college, I was actually working as a research assistant, undergraduate research assistant for the instructional science department at the university. My plan was actually to get a degree in instructional science, yeah, a master's degree in instructional science. I didn't wind up doing that because my wife was tired of me being in school. And even though the VA was going to pay for it, she was just like, I'm not going to put up with that. So I wound up not going with it. But it got me involved with this group that we were learning about learning and teaching. And one of the things we talked about was the law of the simplest case. And what this is it's that in order to solve any problem, problems are very complex, okay? But in order to solve a problem, you have to, first of all, boil it down to its simplest form. What's the simplest case of the problem? And once you've solved the simplest case of the problem, you can then add in the other appendages or things that go with it to solve the problem. So the example that they gave in the class, which is a really basic one, is how long is it going to take me to get somewhere, right? Well, there are a lot of variables involved in that. I mean, my wife and I just drove to California where her two older boys are living, and we all went out there for Christmas. And it's about a 10-hour drive. But that's if you drive steadily, if weather conditions are good, if there aren't any traffic hazards, if you don't make any pit stops, if you don't stop to eat anything, etc. So the actual figuring how long it's going to take to get there is dependent on a lot of factors, like how often are you going to have to stop and go to the bathroom? How often are you going to have to stop to eat? How often are you going to have to stop to get gas? But in its simplest form, removing all of the extraneous pieces, the basic problem is the time equals the distance divided by the speed. In other words, I can't even begin to solve the problem until I know how far I'm traveling and how fast I will be going. Now, once I have those two things, then I can add in all the rest. I can go, okay, it's 600 miles. We're going to be traveling 60 miles an hour. That's 10 hours of driving plus, 1 hour to stop and eat, so much to stop and blah, blah, blah. So here's our estimated time of arrival. That's the idea of the simplest case. So right after I took this class, I graduated from college. I started up with Edward Milo Millett, who was a master herbalist who had ghost authored the School of Natural Healing for John Christopher. He was kind of upset with John Christopher because he thought he was going to get co-authorship, and he didn't get that, and so he was very angry about it. But he had some interesting ideas about natural health, and it took me about 6 months of listening to him before I got what he was trying to say. And it was like this flash of insight, because I had been interested in herbs up to that time, and I had dabbled in them. I'd actually gotten some results with them. I worked on improving my diet. I was getting some health problems for the first time. But, there were many times when I, look up an herbal remedy for a problem and try it, and it didn't seem to work very well. And I was trying to puzzle out, what was really going on here and how this works. Well, what he explained, and this is very, very important to grasp because this is the core of what we're going to talk about tonight, is that there were two basic approaches to healing. There was the historical uses approach, in terms of herbalism. And then there was the what he called the systematic approach. Now, the historical uses approach is basically what I was using. I had books, and I would have a problem like a cough or a fever or a sore throat or whatever, or you have something even more serious like high blood pressure, and you look up in the book and it gives you these remedies, these herbs or maybe nutrients or whatever that have been used to treat this problem. And so you try some of those things as alternatives to the drugs and so forth to try to treat that problem. And this is the way orthodox medicine functions. I mean, basically, you go to the doctor, he checks you, you have a cough, he gives you something for the cough, you have fever, he gives you something for the fever, you have high cholesterol, he gives something to bring the cholesterol down, you have high blood pressure, he gives you something to bring the blood pressure down, you have pain, he gives you something to relieve the pain. It's basically all oriented towards the symptoms and oriented towards, relieving those symptoms. And that was my mindset. That was the mindset I had, because that was the mindset that I had been trained to have in school, as the mindset my parents had with taking me to the doctor and so forth. And all I was doing was taking natural remedies as alternatives to drugs. I was still operating under the same paradigm. And then this most miraculous thing occurred when I had this blinding flash of understanding that the symptom was not the disease. That was the first major revelation, and the first fundamental thing I want to tell everybody, that is as a earth-shattering paradigm shift. Understand that when I was coughing, the coughing is not the problem. When I had a fever, the fever was not the problem. When I had diarrhea, the diarrhea was not the problem. What it was that something was irritating the body, and the body was trying to get rid of it. So the symptom, when I was acutely ill, such as the diarrhea or whatever, was actually the cure. It was what the immune system, what the body's innate intelligence was doing to get well. And I was in this mindset, you see, that what you had to do was stop the cough, and that was curing you. What you had to do was bring down the fever. That was curing you. And I realized it wasn't curing you. It was actually interfering with what your body innately was trying to do to cure you. And that was like I say, a blinding flash of revelation. And it was like, wow, how did that happen? I mean, I've been doing the wrong thing. Now, what I want you to understand is this was like an insight. And I knew, because I'd had this class, that I had just discovered the simplest case of healing. The time equals distance divided by speed of healing. And I put it into a graphic because that was the way I had to express it. So what I've got is I got a couple of slides here. We're gonna see how this works, because it's the first time I've ever uploaded a presentation. And this was the model I came up with. I call it the furnace analogy. And what I realized was that a living body is animated. It is an energetic process that's going on. Everything in your body is constantly moving, constantly shifting, constantly. Your blood is flowing, your nerves are pulsing. There's all this energy going on as things are moving and flowing in this process of life. So life is a process of energy. And I realized that what happens in sickness is that you have one of three things happening that is causing a problem with that energy that animates the material matter of our body and gives it life. Because you see, the opposite of life is death. And what happens in death is you still have all of the structures that you had in life, all the organs that you had in life, all the tissues you had in life, everything is there. But the animating force, whatever it is that was animating that life structure, is gone. And therefore, health and disease has to do with the level of with that animating force working in the body. And there are three principles involved here. Now, that animating force, part of what happens in life is we take in nutrition and we absorb and utilize it and make it part of ourselves. And then we also eliminate the waste. And as tissues die or whatever, they're put out and eliminated, and new stuff comes in through the food that we eat. I mean, this is the basic process of life. And to make this even more clear that this is a process of energy, not a process of matter, I want you to think about the idea that science tells us that all of the matter in the body, all of it, changes so that over a course of approximately 7 years, this is kind of the theoretical anyway, all of the molecules of matter that were in your body 7 years ago are no longer in your body today. And yet here you are. You still exist. What happened? All of the material substance that we think of as constituting us is constantly in flux. The only thing that remains is whatever this animating life energy is. And so we have material coming into the body, participating in that animation of life energy, and then a material leaving the body. So disease arises from one of three basic causes. One, we aren't putting into the body the materials that the body needs to replace tissues and repair what's going on. Okay, that's one cause. The second cause is there is material that either has come in that is toxic or irritating to the system. Therefore, it's blocking or obstructing the life energy and not participating in the flow of life. Or there's material that was once participating in the flow of life, waste material, that is not being properly eliminated from the body. Either way, there is stuff that doesn't belong that's clogging up the system. And I realized that what's happening in all acute illness is the effort of the body to throw off material that's clogging the system. It's that simple. The disease process of acute illness is the body trying to throw off material that's obstructing the life energy. And the sooner the body can throw it off, the faster you'll get healthy. And then there was this third thing, which is like fanning the flame of life. Now, I kind of understood that there's a physical side of that, we breathe, we take in oxygen, we eat food, we fuel, and we fuel it. But I also understood, and this was hard at first to put into words, but this understanding that there was actually the quality of what was going on in that vital energy itself, which is really dictated by our mental and emotional state. In other words, we either have thoughts and feelings that are contributing to the flow of that life energy, helping to properly animate that matter and keep us healthy, or we have thoughts and feelings that are causing disruptions in that energy process, which then those disruptions in the energy process are disrupting what's coming in and what's going out and making us sick. Three things. That's it. That's the simplest case of health and disease. Now, going back to this idea I learned in this class, you can't solve a complex problem by looking at all of the different variables and blah, 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 and everything until you have what? You have identified the simplest case. And without that simplest case understanding, everything you do will tend to be rather hit and miss and blah, blah, sometimes work and sometimes won't work. And this is what I realized I was doing, because I was actually in the way I was thinking about trying to use herbs, I was actually, rather than understanding what's going on in the body and working with it, I was actually trying to work against it. And I realized that the entire practice of medicine works against the natural principle of healing, because the entire principle of medicine is built around treating symptoms. And if symptoms are the effort of the body to heal itself, then treating the symptom is interfering with the body's ability to heal itself. Now, I understood this first with acute illness. And of course, understanding and having an idea of it and then putting it into practice is a total different thing. But over the next few years, I put it into practice with myself. I started putting it in practice with my family. I started putting it in practice with other people. And I found, whoa, this really works. This instead of getting haphazard results, when I try to think about what's the body trying to do and how can I help it do what it's trying to do, and then try to work with the intelligence of the life force of the body instead of against it, I got really dramatic results. Like I used to get sick and have colds that would linger for 2 weeks, and I'd have a really tough time throwing them off. And then when I grasped this idea, instead I worked to how can I help the body throw off faster what it's trying to get rid of. And when I did that, I found that I started recovering faster and faster from acute illness. And my children, who were never exposed to a lot of drugs and toxins and chemicals, you know, if I worked with them, they could usually throw off a cold or a fever or a sore throat or something like that in a couple hours. It was pretty easy. Just work with the body instead of against the body. It was a blinding realization. And then, of course, about 4 years later, I started to teach it to other people because I'd had 4 years of experience in proving to myself that this was a valid concept. Now, eventually, you know, so here you have it. Now, what I did with this is I basically went to, Ed Millett talked about this activate, build, and cleanse as the ABCs of healing. And I immediately saw this in this model that activate was to remove the obstructions in your mind and your emotions that are preventing you from getting well. The belief systems in illness, the negative emotional states that are making you worried and afraid and scared and whatever, that's activate. I talked about it on a physical level, you know, because a lot of people weren't ready for it, but I knew down inside the real principle of activation was working directly with that life force. And that life force had to do with our thoughts and emotions, with what you might call our soul being a reflection of our consciousness and our emotional state, the invisible part of ourselves that is at work. Build, of course, meant get the nutrition into the body that the body needed to rebuild tissues. Because as Dr. Bernard Jensen says, you know, if you're going to eat jelly donuts, you're going to have a jelly donut brain, a jelly donut joint, you know, whatever. You want to have healthy tissues, you've got to put in the right raw materials. Okay, and I came to the conclusion that whole natural foods, the way God made them, were the right materials, and refined and processed foods weren't. And then the last thing was just cleanse, was detoxify, help the body get rid of what doesn't belong there, what's obstructing the life force. That's the simplest case of healing. It's easy as ABC. And once you grasp that, everything else you learn has to be built around that. Because if you're not getting the core time equals distance divided by speed, you can't solve the more complex problem of healing. And that was the way it is. Now I'm going to stop the slide presentation for just a second and say what happened next was, all right, right after I figured this out with Ed Millett, I actually became acquainted with Dr. C. Samuel West of the International Academy of Lymphology, and I actually went to work with him. And Dr. West was teaching this concept of what he called trapped blood proteins. That trapped blood proteins were the cause of all death and disease and everything. And you know, what I eventually figured out, he was talking about actually the inflammatory process. And he was years ahead of the research, because now research is showing that all chronic and degenerative disease begins with inflammation. Inflammation is the initial response of tissues to damage and irritation. And when that damage and irritation is not fixed, or the damage is ongoing, or the irritation is ongoing, and you got chronic inflammation lays the groundwork for all chronic and degenerative disease. I don't care whether it's in your brain, with Alzheimer's or dementia or Parkinson's, or whether it's in your heart with cardiovascular disease, or in your liver with hepatitis and cirrhosis of the liver. It's all the same. It's all the same thing. It's all chronic inflammation. And tissues become inflamed when they are being chronically damaged or irritated. It's as simple as that. So there has to be some source of damage or irritation to the tissues in order for them to become inflamed and to remain inflamed. Okay. And they also may remain inflamed because there aren't the nutrients necessary to reverse the inflammatory process and bring the tissues back to normal. But again, it's the same thing. In other words, I started to see, and I'm gonna bring the presentation back up again, that there was this process of these things began at the cellular level. So okay, here we are. What I learned from Dr. West is that you have all these little cells that are living in community. We're really a community of little teeny living organisms called cells. That's what our body is. You are the animating force of this, huge group of cells. You're the governor, the leader of them, but you have over 100 trillion subjects in your kingdom. There are all these little individual cells, and they all have certain needs. They have to have oxygen, they have to have nutrients, they have to have a regulated temperature, they have to have water, hydration, and they have to have removal of waste. In other words, they've got to have water and nutrients and oxygen. That's the stuff that's got to come in. And they've got to have waste removal, plus a steady temperature or a balanced energy. All right? That's all cells need to live. Those 5 things. The research, that Alexis Carrel did with chicken heart tissue, he basically proved cells are immortal. Cells live forever as long as they have the right conditions. You die only because your cells stop getting what they need to live. And the body as a whole is divided into all these tissues and structures, all of which contribute to the maintenance of those 5 things. Your lungs putting in oxygen, taking off carbon dioxide, your digestive system breaking down the nutrients and supplying them to the tissues, your eliminative organs removing, the waste materials. All these things are all designed to make sure that all the cells in the body get what they need. Those 5 things. So the blood comes in, bringing oxygen, nutrients, and water to the tissues. The lymph carries away waste and material, debris. The blood being like the front door delivery system, the lymph being like the back alley where you take out the trash. And the cells live in what's called a subatmospheric pressure condition, where there's no pressure around the cells. The pressure is all in the bloodstream, and it's maintained by osmotic pressure with plasma proteins. So what I learned is about inflammation, and the fact that in inflammation, you have a damage of tissues that releases substances that create a cascade of chemical messengers that dilate the capillaries, pull in fluid and proteins, and basically disrupt the process of getting oxygen and nutrients to the tissues and getting waste out. Now, this is a protective mechanism because it's designed to sequester damaged tissue until the white blood cells can come in and clean up any infection or debris or whatever that might have gotten into that damaged tissue. But nonetheless, it's just a localized event, but those local cells lose what I talked about earlier. They lose the input of nutrients and the outflow of waste. And in order for them to heal, the inflow of nutrients has to be restored, the outflow of waste has to be restored, and the energy field, and there is an energy field aspect of this, has to be put back into position. It's the same ABCs. Understand? The same basic thing. Only now I've learned it on a different level. I've learned it not on the whole body level, but on the cellular level. And I realized there are three systems that permeate the entire body. One is the nervous system, the other is the circulatory system, and the other one's the lymphatic system. And these three things represent the same basic principles. The nervous system represents the constant electrical stimulation or activity or regulation of tissues, which also includes the chemical messengers released by the glandular system. That's the principle of activating the healing. The blood supply, bringing in oxygen and nutrients and water to the tissues to help and the lymphatic system, draining away waste or acting as cleansing. There it is again, the same pattern at the cellular level: activate, build, and cleanse. The basic core principles of healing, without which you can't ever really solve the problem of health. Because otherwise what you have is a whole big long list of things that go wrong with the body and a whole big long list of possible things that will fix it, without any clear overarching understanding of what is causing disease in general. Understand? You're thinking in terms of this, like this, it's all this isolated thing, when it's really it's all the same thing happening in different parts of the body. That's all it is. In other words, and of course, when it happens in your liver and your liver starts to break down, that affects the entire body, because the liver is one of the most important organs of internal detoxification. So the whole body becomes poisoned. All right. So basically, the aspect of the systematic approach that Ed Millett introduced me to and then expanded with my understanding with Dr. C. Salman West was this: is systematic for two reasons. One is because it represents a systematic way of looking at health and disease that doesn't have to deal with specific diseases. In other words, I can look at the person as a whole and I can say, what do I need to do to activate their life energy? What nutrients do they need? How can I help them have a better diet, get the nutrients they need? And three, how can I help them detoxify and avoid toxins? Boom. Okay. In other words, that's when I'm looking at someone, that's the first thing I'm thinking. I'm not thinking, oh, they have high blood pressure. How do I treat high blood pressure? Oh, they have this. How do I treat that? How do I do this? I have to treat that. I'm thinking, how can I help them to activate their vital force, get the nutrients they need, and detoxify? Because that heals all disease. Understand? But it's systematic in that in order for those three things to happen, there are systems that specialize in all three of those activities, right? So if one of those systems is damaged, then I have to look at how do I help heal the damage in that system, so that system will then do its job of helping the body detoxify, helping the body get nutrients in it, helping the body be regulated or activated by the life force, the vital force. Do you understand? It's just another way of looking at the same thing. And when I understood that and learned from Dr. West how to like take a smashed finger and grab hold of it and heal it in 5 to 15, 20 minutes. And I realized that same inflammation that happened in that smashed finger is what happens in my liver, what happens in my lungs, what happens in my brain, what happens everywhere. So, but the same basic principles that I was using if I held the smashed finger that helped it to heal are the same basic principles that will help the cells in my brain to heal, the cells in my liver to heal, the cells in whatever to heal. Because if I understand inflammation and what's going on in inflammation and how to help inflamed tissues get back to normal, I can heal anything, right? Because everything is inflammation. You're understanding why I'm saying that you can't, everywhere out there I see people and they're memorizing all these big long blah 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 blah, but they lack this overarching understanding of health and disease. That is what I call the simplest case. And I, like Thomas Easley and I met a couple of young women who had gone to Bastier's 4-year herbal program. I don't know how much that cost, $80,000 or something like that, 4 years. neither one of them felt confident in doing a consultation with someone. Why? Because their head was full of a whole bunch of different facts, but they lacked the cohesive basic framework of understanding health and disease, which is what I thought was just absolutely amazing. So this is basically what I learned from Dr. West that inflamed tissues are like. You get a flow of plasma proteins that move into the tissue spaces. And as they do, they pull fluid in there, and that fluid starts stagnating. All right. And that stagnating fluid slows the oxygen and nutrients getting to the area. It slows the removal of waste. And again, this is a protective mechanism, because if there are bacteria that got into that wound, or a snake venom, or a spider venom, or something else like that got into that damaged tissue, this is sequestering the area to hold it while the body goes and tries to figure out what to do about it. But nonetheless, even though it's a protective mechanism, the goal is you've got to neutralize the venom, or you've got to, help the body, its immune system to get in there and fight the infection or whatever. But then you've ultimately got to get that tissue back to its normal state. You've got to get the blood bringing oxygen and nutrients in. You've got to get the lymph taking the fluid and waste out. And you've got to get the energy back into that, because as the fluid accumulates, the energy field, the electrical energy field in that area of the body diminishes. And as it diminishes, that causes the plasma proteins to clot. As you reapply the energy causes the plasma proteins to move back into solution, allows the area to drain, and allows it to heal. Now that's where the kinds of things that I learn from Dr. West about using pressure massage, rapid light stroking, energy balls, energy circuits, all these things I learned about using energy to heal. It's part of the reason why I go to the chiropractor I go to. They use lasers, because I know that applying energy to tissues that are damaged or inflamed actually helps to break up the inflammation and cause that to come in. Same thing with essential oils. One of the reasons why essential oils are such powerful healers is they're such high energy remedies, and they go in, and one of the first things they do is they help to break up the stagnation that allows that area to begin the process of healing. You still have to have the nutrients coming in through the circulatory system, good blood flow. You still have to get the lymph to drain to take that waste away. But again, activate, build, cleanse. Same process over and over again. So as I explored this, it just became clear to me that, it wasn't about treating diseases. It was about looking at the person and seeing, okay, what negative beliefs, attitudes, and feelings are interfering with them being well? Is the diet that they're consuming giving them the nutrients they need for their body to make repairs? Are they exposing themselves to any environmental toxins, and or are they having any problems with their elimination that's preventing them from getting rid of stuff that's, waste material? This is the way I began to think. It has nothing to do with diseases. You don't have to have the big long book with all, even though I wrote one, you don't have to have the big, huge book about diseases, because all disease heals through the same basic process. The only thing that you can add into that gives it a little more depth is that when you're able to identify which body systems or tissues are experiencing the damage, then you can kind of target remedies a little bit more to help that particular part of the body heal. But it's the same process in every part of the body, whether it's the brain or the nerves or the liver or whatever. It's still a chronic inflammatory process that has to be reversed. I hope I'm making sense. And that you're able to, grasp that, these are core concepts. Without these core concepts, health and disease seems like a massive confusion. But once you have these core concepts, everything else builds around them, and all of the little appendages, okay, like how many bathroom stops you're going to make, and how many times you got to stop for gasoline and all that stuff in the traveling someplace. All that's just stuff that you add on to refine what you're doing. It's not the core of what you're doing. And every time I've gotten caught up in that, the whole disease treatment thing and all the different, this herb is good for this and that herb is good for that, it starts to get confusing even for me. And then I go back to the basic principles and everything clears up and it works a lot better anyway. All right. That's why this is so important and why I realized I really need to get this message out there. Now, I want to go back to my slides here. And now at the same time I had the furnace analogy, I also saw this. And this leads into the whole thing of again, another way of looking at the same thing I've been saying all along. Because what I realized is that there were three main root causes of disease. Now, I have a tiny root called physical trauma because, physical injury is one of the things that, can eventually set you up for illness. Like you get physical injury to a joint, and if it doesn't heal properly, that's the caveat. If it doesn't heal properly, it may eventually become arthritic. But the three big things that I've talked about all along here, the mental and emotional stress, nutritional deficiencies, and toxic overload, are basically the underlying root causes of illness. And so no illness will heal. I'm going to get really big about this. No illness will ever heal if you do not figure out the root causes and fix them. The entire practice of medicine is geared towards symptomatic treatment, which is why there's whole bunches of illnesses that are incurable, right? High blood pressure, blah, blah, on and on and on. People take medications for them forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, and they never get healthier. They never get well. They never get restored to a vibrant, healthy state of being, because all they're doing is bandaging over the symptoms. And what happened to me as I gathered this first with acute illness, acute symptoms, I started to understand it with chronic symptoms. High blood pressure is a symptom. Depression is a symptom. High cholesterol is a symptom. Low cholesterol is a symptom. They're all symptoms. What happens is if the body isn't getting what it needs, right? If it's not getting the minerals it needs, it's not getting the vitamins it needs, it's not getting the fiber it needs, not getting the water it needs, not getting the sleep it needs, whatever it needs, okay, if the body's not getting it, or whatever toxins may get in the system that it doesn't have the nutrients it needs to throw them out, because the body needs nutrients not only to repair tissues, but also to throw out the toxins. So if the body's not getting what it needs, then things start to get out of balance, and the body will find ways to compensate for that to try to keep you alive. So it raises the cholesterol because, well, there's a whole bunch of reasons why the cholesterol might go up. But one of them, I'll tell you, is that cholesterol binds environmental toxins. So you're in a really toxic environment and your liver doesn't have the ability to throw those out. Your body makes more cholesterol to bind environmental toxins to protect your body against that. It also makes more cholesterol when you have an infection to bind the endotoxins that are produced by the bacteria to help you get over it. It also, if you have a low thyroid, so that you can't burn the fats in your body, your cholesterol will go up for that reason too. Or if you don't have enough fats in your diet, so you don't have enough demand for bile, which is the number one use of cholesterol, your cholesterol will go up over that. In other words, everybody looks at the effect over here, the high cholesterol, and they say, oh, if we treat the effect, the problem is solved. No, it's not. If I take down the cholesterol and I still have the environmental toxins, okay, then all I've done is I've interfered with the body's coping mechanism for the toxic environment I'm in. And that's why lower cholesterol levels are associated with higher risk of cancer. All right, so I think I'm trying to protect myself against heart disease, and I'm increasing my risk of cancer. Really wonderful. Okay, I mean, this is the insanity that's going on in our society, because we don't want to take the time to look at the root causes. We instead want to just treat the symptom, make it go away, right? But it doesn't go away. That's why drugs have side effects. It doesn't go away because now the body has to cope with the drug and find another way to cope with the toxic environment of the body and the nutritional deficiencies in the body and the lack of sleep you have and the lack of exercise you're getting and on and on and on. But see, the problem is most people want the magic fix. Give me the pill so I don't have to do anything, right? It doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, that's not a very popular message because we live in a culture that's addicted to the magic fix. But I've never found it to work. I don't, and even in the natural health community, I mean, sometimes we point fingers at the medical community and say, oh, look at them, they're street symptoms. But then you get into the natural health community and the latest fad remedy comes on the board, take this wonderful thing and then blah, blah, blah. And you don't have to change your diet. You don't have to, right? It's the same thing. You can't, you're just trading an herb for a drug. If you don't understand the basic principles of healing, if you don't know how to work on the root cause by activating, building, and cleansing the body, you don't understand how to heal. And all of the little things that you memorize are never going to really give you the results that you want. Now, in the disease tree, basically what I'm saying is that there are three basic things. This is another way of saying the same thing. You have to develop a positive mental attitude and have emotional balance because that activates the life force of your body and puts it to a positive use. You have to have a healthy diet and get adequate nutrients into your body. And you have to detoxify your body and avoid toxins in your environment. Cleanse, activate, build, cleanse. It just over and over again on every level I looked at it. That's the core of healing, ABC. Right? And if you aren't doing ABC, then you're missing the core of healing. And you're throwing Band-Aids at things. And I don't like throwing Band-Aids at things. I want to fix the root cause. So, years ago, I produced Fundamentals of Natural Healing course. And I laid out three aspects of this. In the first section of my Fundamentals of Natural Healing course, I talked about inflammation and pain. And about what I learned from Dr. West about how to take the pain out of injuries and how to help the tissues heal on that tissue level. Now, here's what I think is really important. If you don't know how to take the pain out of an injury and make it heal really quickly, what makes you think you could help work with somebody with cancer or heart disease or any other serious illness? It was learning how to do that, how to erase the pain of an injury, usually in 5 to 20 minutes, and how to apply herbs intelligently to injuries because I understood what was happening in the injury and how to make that work. That opened my mind to then understand better how to understand acute disease, which was the second thing I did, which has to do with the furnace analogy. That in acute disease, it's still inflammation. The only difference is instead of an obvious mechanical injury, the injury is taking place because of either toxins or irritants that are present in the system or an infection. And an infection, it's not the microbes that are the problem in the infection. All right? Microbes are not the enemy. When you get the wrong kind of microbes growing in your body, which actually only happens because those kind of microbes only grow in tissues that have already become inflamed. In other words, the tissue damage occurs first and the infection follows. You understand what I'm saying? The swamp has to be there before the mosquitoes invade it. The garbage pile has to be there before the flies invade it. The tissue has to become damaged and weakened before the bacteria invade it. But once they do invade it, the bacteria, feeding off of the damaged and injured tissues, produce microbial endotoxins, causing an auto-intoxication process in the body that starts poisoning the rest of the body. which is why in acute illness, your body does all these things to flush out the irritants while it's going and attacking the bacteria and trying to clean up the inflammation. That's the understanding of acute illness. Once you understand that, then you know how to intelligently apply remedies to help acute illness heal. And really, what I figured out is chronic illness is nothing more than acute illness that's never been healed. Acute injury and illness has never been healed. In other words, you suppress what the body's trying to do to heal itself of acute disease, or you fail to take care of an injury, and tissues become chronically inflamed. That causes them to become chronically weak. And wherever they are in the body, those weakened systems, glands, organs, tissues, or whatever, stop doing what they do to give all of the tissues of the body what they need. And you get sick. You can't be sick just in your liver, or just in your heart, or just in your intestinal tract, or just in your thyroid, or just in whatever. The body is well or sick as a whole. And I call it treatment by prevention. When you look at your lifestyle and you realize, okay, wait a minute, how are my thoughts and emotions making me sick? How is my diet? And am I giving my body what it needs? Am I building up my body with what it needs? Am I avoiding the toxins and helping my body to clean itself out from them? Okay. That's the answer to chronic disease. And it does not involve having to give the disease a name. Okay. Giving the disease process a label. So people come and they say, well, I've got low thyroid and I've got fibromyalgia and I've got this and I've got that, blah, blah, blah. Nah, it's all one thing. Chronically inflamed tissues in various parts of the body that aren't anymore contributing their share towards keeping the whole body healthy. Just have to identify where the problems are and start working on getting them to heal. Okay. Now, that was my original course. And I realized, though, I had left out, I touched on it, but I left out the whole mental and emotional part of it. I don't know why. But I decided I needed to add that in as a fourth part of the class. So I'm redoing the whole class this year, and with those four things, you understand? Talking about it, it's these basic four principles that I learned. The first was about the furnace analogy, and the how the body works that way, and the activate, build, and cleanse. The second one was about what's happening at the cellular level with the inflammatory process. The third was about the disease tree. But out of that grew the fourth, which I didn't put a graphic up for. But what I realized is that we practice emotional allopathy on each other. And so what happens is we learn to stuff our emotions. We learn to deny our own thoughts, deny our own inner knowing. And so we lose touch with ourselves and with our body and our own heart and our own feelings. And in doing so, we disconnect from being able to really identify what's going on inside of us and trust ourselves. And I learned that you had to go in and reconnect with that. And ultimately, real healing took place by doing that. Because here's the problem. If you don't do that, you're forever stuck in trying to figure out from books what you should be eating and what you should be doing and how much you should be sleeping. And it's all just a logical game. But if you go back and you get in tune with your own body, you have within you all the same instincts that animals do. Your body knows what it needs. It knows what foods it needs to get the nutrients that it's missing. It knows what it needs to do to detoxify. It knows what it needs to do to healthy. It knows what it needs to do to recover from trauma. It's just you're not paying any attention to it because you've been taught to deny it, suppress it, and so forth. So I had to add that as the fourth big discovery in the module. So what I wanted to do in this class is people are short on time. So I wanted to make half-hour lessons. So what I'm doing is I'm breaking each of these four things down into 8 half-hour lessons with a reading assignment, a little self-help quiz and everything, all so that lesson can be completed in less than an hour. So people can get all these basic principles that I've talked about tonight. And I've already given you the principles. They're all there. Everything that I learned, all of the blinding flashes and realization is there. You all have it. You can do the same thing with it I did. Go out, start applying it, figuring out how to make it work. The only thing I do in my fundamentals class is I give you more specifics and details and examples and so on and so forth of how to do it. All right. But all the core principles of what I do are all presented tonight. But each module is $75. If you want to take the entire new course, it's $250. If you take from the old course, call us and we'll figure out a price for doing the new one. But it's going to go through the entire year. Starts 2 weeks from tonight, and so 32 weeks with some spaces in between, because of holidays and travel and everything. The class will complete in December. 1 half-hour lesson a week with some quick things, not a lot of time. And I'm going to share all the core principles that I learned that I think are the fundamental things that you have to know to be able to heal. That's why I called it Fundamentals of Natural Healing, because I believe that if people have this knowledge, everything else that they study, they can build on and learn from. So we're about to the end of our hour. I just want to see if this webinar is being recorded. Actually, it's being broadcast to YouTube, and the webinar recording will be available for everybody to view. So forth. Let's see. There's some questions here like, what do you think about biomagnetism? Well, that's actually part of this whole energy process of healing that it involves the mental and emotional thing as well as a physical aspect of it, of just electrical energy and so forth. That's why magnets heal. That's why lasers heal. That's why electrical currents heal, etc. That's one of the things we cover in the first module, is this whole idea of energy as helping inflamed tissues to return to support. I don't have any seasonal consideration about activation, build, and cleanse. Basically, there's cycles, all right? Your body naturally detoxifies at night in a state of rest. Your body naturally, in the morning, when you break your fast, because fasting is the body's natural method of detoxification, fasting and drinking water, you start a process of ingesting nutrients and taking them in, and then in the evening you stop eating and you go back into a cleansing cycle. So there's a building and cleansing cycle. Of course, you're taking in nutrients during the day, but while you're resting, your body is also rebuilding itself. Okay, but it also does detoxification because all of these processes are connected. That's why a lot of people will have a bowel movement first thing in the morning. Okay. Because the body's clearing itself out. Or if their liver is really toxic, they wake up feeling really groggy and everything else like that, because all these poisons are in their body that their body's trying to get rid of. Or why women have morning sickness. They wake up in the morning and throw up because their body's trying to dump toxins to keep it from poisoning the baby. Right? This is, see, once you start understanding this, you think about everything way differently than most people do. Someone asked about the cholesterol thing again. Cholesterol is the little boat that the body uses to transport fatty acids to and from the tissues. Okay. As I mentioned, there's about a dozen different reasons why cholesterol will elevate. And one of them is 60% or more of the cholesterol in your body is used to make bile. You go on a low fat diet thinking you're doing yourself a wonderful good, and your cholesterol goes up because your body's not making bile because you're not eating enough fats. Low thyroid makes your cholesterol go up. Exposure to environmental toxins makes your cholesterol go up. Having an infection makes your cholesterol go up. So there's a whole bunch of different reasons why your cholesterol goes up. And that's why you always have to look at the body as a whole. You can never look at one little thing like, oh, I've got high blood pressure. How do you treat high blood pressure? Or I've got high cholesterol. How do you bring the cholesterol down? Because all you're asking is, how do I get rid of the effect? How do I get rid of the symptom? The symptom, remember, is not your problem. The symptom is the effort of your body to cope with the problem. I'm going to repeat that again because because this is, when I saw it, it was a blinding flash of understanding. But then I had, over the next few years, like, is this really true? I mean, blah, 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 because I'm going against everything I've ever been taught, right? That, the kid's got a fever. Oh, I got to bring the fever down and blah, blah. No, I mean, I had to learn to trust that whatever the body was doing, it was doing because the life energy of the body was doing that symptom in order to cope with what was wrong. And what I had to do was look at the ABCs and figure out what was wrong. Why the body was creating that symptom to try to cope with the imbalances in it. So it was when I thought that way and started to practice that way that I started to get really good results. And for years, I actually resisted writing a book, with diseases, because I didn't even think that way. Okay. And if you take the class, all the class segments are recorded. All of them will be uploaded. You'll go get a login to the class page. You'll be able to view the recording. There's a little self-graded quiz you take to capture the basic materials in the class. There will be a little reading assignment that covers the material in that class. And like I say, the whole thing is designed. I want people to be able to complete the whole thing in less than an hour, because I know people are busy. And I want them to be able to grasp these concepts, concept 1, concept 2, concept 3, boom, 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 and get these things, because we have to make a paradigm shift. What I am committed to, and what I decided I need to devote my energy and time to, is one simple thing. We have in this country a disease care system. We take care of diseases, which is treating symptoms. And most people getting into alternative medicine still maintain the disease care mentality. They're still trying to take care of their diseases. They're still trying to suppress their symptoms. I want to change the entire paradigm. I want to change the paradigm to a health care system, because I want people to understand these core principles that are, from what I understand, the simplest case of healing. If you understand the simplest case of healing, everything else you learn will wrap around that. And I have found these core principles, as I've looked at all kinds of different problems in the body, these core principles come back again and again and again. I just gave it to you with cholesterol, right? What's one of the reasons why cholesterol goes up? Environmental toxins. That's the cleansing aspect. What's another one? Low thyroid. Maybe that's because you don't get enough iodine, a nutritional deficiency. It always goes back to a toxin, a nutritional deficiency, or a problem in your mental and emotional attitude. Okay? And that's what you're looking for. Not a cure for your disease, but how is your mental and emotional attitude adversely affecting your health? What nutrients are you not getting that you need to be getting, and what toxins are you being exposed to that your body isn't able to cope with or get rid of? Once you do this, you are understand that you're always treating the person. You're never treating the disease. This is treating the person, and that's healthcare. All right. Okay. Someone just, one more great example, and then we'll wrap this up. Someone mentioned ED, erectile dysfunction. Yeah, exactly. Okay, first of all, again, a symptom, all right? But what's causing the symptom? And someone says, could it be emotional, vein blockages, or something else? Okay, well, let's start with the fact that you have to have blood flow, okay, into that organ for it to get erect, to get hard. So if you have something impairing circulation, then that's going to make it difficult to get an erection, right? So that's one thing. There's a blockage in circulation somewhere, which again goes back into, why is there a blockage in circulation and so forth. But another thing could be, low testosterone, which again has root causes. Again, and you've got to look deeper into that. But there's a big thing with mental and emotional attitude, because a man actually has to have a certain feeling inside of himself in order to get erection. And if that emotional part of him gets damaged, he can have perfectly good circulation and perfectly good testosterone levels, although that emotional part of him being damaged actually tends to take down his testosterone levels. You've got to deal with it. And so always, whenever I'm looking at anything, you understand, I'm looking at it in the light of the ABCs, always in the light of the ABCs, because I understand that somewhere, okay, there's some mental or emotional issue that's blocking it. There's some lack of nutrients that the body needs to function properly, or there's some obstruction in the system due to the presence of toxins or things that shouldn't be there that need to be cleaned out, always. And it doesn't matter what as Samuel Thompson says, what the name or color of the disease is, whether it's yellow, bilious, scarlet, or spotted, simple or complicated. Names are arbitrary things, and the knowledge of the name is cumin and anise, but in the knowledge of the origin of a malady and its antidote lie the weightier matters of the science. It is this knowledge that makes the genuine physician. All without it is real quackery. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope I've been able to impress upon you why I think these concepts are so important, because I think without these concepts, we're wandering around in la la land trying to treat disease without really understanding where disease is coming from. And once you understand this, like I said, I saw it over and over and over again on multiple levels, validated this concept. And when I put it into practice, I found that it really, really worked. And so I encourage you to sign up for this class, tell other people about it. I'd really love to get 200 or 300 or 400 people, taking this class. I'd love to get thousands and thousands of people knowing this information, because I think it would change thousands and thousands of lives. It's not that complicated. It really isn't that complicated. It's actually fairly simple. You just have to put it into practice. And once you start putting in practice, look at me, okay? I am 63 years old, all right? And almost everybody who knows me thinks that I'm in my early 50s. Maybe I'm 50 or something around there. I'm not in perfect health, because I don't perfectly, eat all the time, and I have stress and I have things I have to work through. But I don't take any drugs. I don't take any medications. I don't, I've only been to a doctor 4 times in the last 35 years or so. Okay. For anything, and I'm in, pretty good health. I have great emotional attitude. I'm a living example that these principles work, and I've seen them work over and over again in my life and in the lives of people that I've guided to help follow them. So that's why I'm passionate about this. I want other people to know this. One of my sons, when we talking about the simple things we do for relieving injuries, he says, I can't believe everybody doesn't know this. And that's the way I feel. My people perish for lack of knowledge. I wish everybody could know this, because if everybody knew this, there would be far less disease. People would have far more confidence in being able to take care of their health and be able to keep themselves healthy and keep their families healthy and so forth. Oh, let me go ahead and put up just one second. By the way, there's a button you can click on to share the file. And I just want to also here is, I'm putting up for everybody the link. If you'd like to register for the class, you could just click on the link. It's at treelight.com, and or you can call tomorrow, not tonight because we're closed, but our toll-free number, which is 800 416-2887. I'll actually type that into the chat so that our wait a minute, here we go. Our website is treelight.com, and David said he'd get that up on the first page. So hopefully it's there. Or our toll-free number is 800-416-2887. Like I say, you can take the entire program for $250, and the individual modules, you don't have to take all of them. Just take what interests you for $75. So there's the links, and of course the offer that you can sign up and just click on the link, and it'll take you to the sign up page, which also has a whole bunch of information about the class. If you aren't ready to sign up for the class, there's some ways that you can get some of this information. I have a YouTube channel. I've got lots of great videos up on my YouTube channel about dealing with different problems, but always coming back to the same core principles. StephenHorn.com. Everything is going to be moving to a website called StephenHorn.com, just my name. It's not all up there yet, but it will be soon. We'll have a lot of free articles. Right now, those articles are up at modernherbalmedicine.com and also at treelight.com. I'll send you the links. I have everybody's email address, so I'll be sending out links both to the recording and also to information about sign up and where you can go get more information, or follow me on Facebook if you're not familiar with me. But we want to get the information out to as many people as we can. And so I appreciate it if you will tell other people who can benefit from this to watch this video, for example, just to learn these basic concepts, because if people will grasp this, it's really going to change their mindset about the way they approach things. And that's going to help them to get better results when they're looking at natural healing. Well, with that, let's end for this evening. Thank you all for participating in tonight's webinar. I appreciate you joining us. There is a certificate of completion for the class, yes. If you complete all the little quizzes and assignments, we'll email you a certificate of completion. And it also is a class that goes for our Certified Herbal Consultant program, which I plan to be updating all of the courses in our Certified Herbal Consultant program to basically follow this format of quick half-hour lessons, half-hour webinars and lessons that can be completed in less than an hour over the next little while. Anyway, thanks again for participating, and have a good evening, everybody, and best of health to all of you. Good night.